For now, he's not talking, but the newspapers are already headlining another French terrorist. 29-year-old Mehdi Nemouche arrested Saturday at the train station in Marseille, a week after the shooting spree at the Jewish museum that left in Brussels that left 3 dead and a 4th victim in critical condition. The suspect, who claimed responsibility in a video that police found but had not yet been posted to the internet, he would be the first homegrown jihadist to strike after returning from Syria, where Nemouche recently spent more than a year fighting for the radicals of the Islamist State of Iraq and the Levant. Like the 2012 Toulouse shooter Mohamed Merah, we're going to hear the description of a one-time small delinquent from a broken home whose radicalization started in prison. The Brussels attack comes less than a month after the French Interior Minister announced new measures to thwart would-be jihadists tempted by the fight in Syria. We're going to be asking our panel whether those measures work, whether this attack could have been prevented, and how far you go to stopping homegrown attacks, including do you monitor and censor the internet? Today in the France 24 debate, to Syria and back, with us to talk about it, Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc of the French Association of Victims of Terrorism. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
You're also with the Radicalization Awareness Network. Also joining us, Marwan Muhammad of the Coalition Against Islamophobia. Thank you for being with us. Nicholas Vineker of the Reuters news agency. Nice to see you again. And from London, Olivier Guitta of the Henry Jackson Society. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.
Pleasure.
The debate where you can join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. Now, before we go to our panel, let's take a look at what we know so far about the suspected shooter who left for Syria on New Year's Eve 2012.
Police took the photograph in 2006. Aged 21, Mehdi Nemouche had just been arrested for robbing a mini-market. The young man grew up in the northern French city Roubaix. Abandoned by his mother at only 3 months old, the child moved between foster homes, also experiencing periods of homelessness. The Frenchman's first brush with the law came aged 19. Nemouche served 5 jail terms for a string of petty thefts and robberies. Still, his family claimed the young man was anything but a radical Islamist.
When I got to know him, he wasn't religious. When he came back, he was praying, but nothing extreme.
According to French prosecutors, Nemouche was radicalized during his latest stint in prison between 2007 and 2012. Prison wardens remember a man fascinated by lone wolf shooter Mohamed Merah's killing spree in southwest France 2 years ago.
As an inmate, he didn't want to have a television set in his cell. But when Mohamed Merah carried out his shootings, he asked for a TV set. During that time, he came across happier than usual. He saw Merah as a comrade.
3 weeks after leaving jail, Nemouche travelled to Syria via Belgium, Britain, Lebanon and Turkey. Investigators believe the Frenchman spent a year with fighters from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, Syria's most radical Islamist militia. Nemouche travelled back to Europe via Asia in March 2014. German authorities alerted the French government of the jihadists' return. The man's whereabouts from then on are unknown. Nemouche resurfacing over the weekend as the principal suspect in the Brussels Jewish Museum shooting.
The principal suspect. Olivier Guitta, the last time we spoke to you, it was, what, a little over a month ago when the French government had announced these new measures to try to contain homegrown jihadists. What are your thoughts when you look at the portrait we have so far of the suspect?
It's no surprise. I mean, as I mentioned earlier a month ago, the writing was on the wall. There are going to be much more happening, unfortunately, in our capitals. The returning jihadists are going to be the biggest issue this year. You could have terror attacks in London, Paris, and again in Brussels, because the numbers and the first generation is coming back. So at this point, the governments need to go on a full press, and I think that the good steps from last month are just a start. Now they need to ramp up measures.
All right, we'll talk more about those steps in a moment. Marwan Muhammad, your reaction to that? Do you feel as though everyone who's coming back from Syria, what the numbers are, that there's according to the Interior Ministry, the 700 in all, there's some 200 who've returned?
At this stage, I have to say I'm a bit puzzled, because in a matter of a few hours we get to know everything about this suspect, the way he traveled, the way he was behaving in prison, the way he grew up, and the fact that he was very radical. Why? Because he was praying. And still 5 minutes before he kills people, we were still unable to stop him. So my first question is, at this stage, maybe we can take some time and have a deeper analysis at the case and at the way this has been planned and executed before taking and jumping to conclusion on automatic transfer into jihadism and to terrorism for people coming back from Syria. The second point is that when we look at these youth that go to Syria, the religious education and the religious affirmation is not the key factor in them moving into Syria. And the same goes with terrorism. Even a deep practice of Islam, even a very elaborate knowledge of Islam doesn't lead to violence. Why? Because there is no violence per se into this religion. What is critical, though, is two things. First, the radicalization in the ideological sense of it, i.e. I cannot perceive the sense of a nuance in my thinking. The second thing is the social exclusion, social distance from the immediate surrounding of the family, of the friends, of the social fabric. These two factors, humiliation and radicalization, and social distance, are the key factors before even mentioning religion, before even mentioning ideology.
So what do you think of the composite sketch that we just showed in that report of this man?
I think it is very problematic, and I explain why. Every time there is a disaster like this, a number of murders, a number of terrorist attacks, whenever the alleged perpetrator is perceived to be Muslim, we run into a political and media hysteria that leads to more and more stigmatization of Muslims. And in the days that follow these events, we have a surge in the anti-Muslim hate crimes and discrimination. The fact is, why would we consider that when we have a lone person like Anders Breivik and he turns to kill 72 people, we consider that this is a lone ranger and he got crazy and he's in an individual trend of killing people? And when we have a Mohammed Merah, or in this case Mehdi Nemouche, we consider that there is something wrong with his religion, and we consider that the Muslim community at large has to apologize for this. So I would like to get back to...
Who's saying that?
Well, looking at the media since yesterday, I hear more and more confusion between terrorism and jihadism, jihadism and Salafism, Salafism and Islamism with just being Muslim. So the problematization machine in terms of usage of language and media critique is up and running at this stage.
Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc?
Yeah, I think we should take care of that, of course, because we should remember that 90% of the victims of terrorism are Muslims. So we should take really attention on the way we speak about what's going on in terrorism, and we should work with the Muslim community to all together to threaten the problem, which is nowadays it's about people saying that they are Muslims, but it's not real Muslims anyway. That's what we believe. Before it was from extreme right or extreme left. What is important is to fight against all the extremists that are leading to terrorism or to violence. It's not being a Muslim which is a problem, it's being an extremist. And this man was an extremist. He was pretending he was a Muslim. We don't know a lot about his Muslim education, but we have many examples where people who became extremists had no real background of Muslim, and they just pretend they were Muslim, but they were not. So it's not a problem of religion. It's a problem of radicalization and inspiration. This person are following a track for different reasons, and a lot of the reasons are due at the lack of identity, and they're looking for a new identity. They want to be proud of themselves. But they're doing, of course, on the wrong way, and they meet the bad person, they go to the bad place, and then they can become dangerous. But it's not a problem of religion. It's a problem. It's linked to religion because it's the purpose and it's how it's showed. But it's not a problem of religion. It's a problem of behavior, of the persons.
The arrest happened Saturday at the main train station in Marseille. By Monday, we have the report that you just saw, Nicholas. When you see that report, one of the key factors in it is the idea that it is a little bit of a copycat killing after the Mohamed Merah Toulouse shooting of 2012.
Well, just very quickly on the sort of discussion we were having earlier, I agree that terms are very important, and we shouldn't be mixing up Muslim, Islamist, and or whatever inaccurate terms have been raised. However,
I know that your organization, Reuters, is loath to put in its style book the word terrorist.
Terrorist is banned, and for good reason, because as they say, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. But there is such a
big
thing.
Difference. Anyway,
well,
that's another debate.
That's exactly, and that's certainly above my head. But there is such a thing as jihadism. There was a reaction from the French umbrella organization of Muslims groups today, drawing attention to the problem, the spread of jihadist ideas, which is something very particular and something which does exist and is being widely disseminated on the internet. Prisons is one place, but we've discovered that prisons is really maybe not the main problem. And in this jihadist ideology, which we could separate if you wanted from Islam entirely, you have heroes and you have martyrs and you have people like Mohamed Merah. And like you said, this is a man who was excluded, who was in the prison system from a very young age, who didn't have a family, who didn't have people to support him and pull him back. And he idolized Mohamed Merah, and this is, we have to look this problem directly in its face and see that, for a lot of people, someone like Mohamed Merah is going to become a hero.
All right, we have a lot of reactions coming in. One here on Twitter, using the terms of lone wolf is handy to hide hundreds of jihadists already in Europe waiting for the green light. Let me ask you, Olivier Guitta, do you think he was a lone wolf, if he is indeed the killer?
There are two suggestions. I mean, literally it could be a lone wolf, but also if you are ISIL in Syria and you have all those European recruits and you want to inflict damage on Europe, then you could basically make the case that when they return to their homelands, they should attack Europe because Europe is the enemy. So, there are two sides to this story. Obviously, the fact that he spent 1 year with the most extreme group in Syria is basically not boding well for Europe as a whole, and you could have, even if you have 10% of the returnees preparing attacks, you could have a very, very bloody year in Europe in the next few months.
All right, and that apprehension expressed by the administrator of the Jewish Museum in Brussels, here's what he had to say when he learned of news of that arrest.
I think that this man will become an idol for certain people. He'll be followed by hundreds or thousands of other people who will share the same motives that push this man to do this.
Marwan Mohammed, do you agree?
Yes. For a number of people, frustration has grown stronger than the feeling of participation in what Europe has become today, which needs us to take a rational approach to what is going on. We have, I think, two problems here. The first problem is the relationship to people departing for Syria or any place in the world to take physical action in combat in the name of an ID. That's the first problem. The second problem is what is the triggering factor, what is the causal factor in the rise of terrorism and in what makes terrorism today. To prove my point and to explain my idea, I'd like to bring in some numbers to the table. There is a network of police forces throughout Europe. It's called Europol, and they produce every year a report on terrorism. In their report, they, for example, explained that we have had 533 arrests, and out of these, only 258 people were convicted. So first result, we're not doing very good at arresting potential terrorists, because we arrest for every terrorist we arrest an innocent person. This person goes to jail, we ruin his life or her life, and then eventually we say, sorry, we ruined your life, but that's anti-terror movement. That's the first lesson. Second lesson is that if we have 152 terrorist attacks in 2013, out of which only 2 are linked to religious movements. So 1% of the terrorist attacks are linked to religious movement, and the rest of it is separatist, right-wing extreme, anarchist movements. So maybe we should respect also this sense of proportion in the way we talk about terrorism generally. So that's the first part. Now, for people going to war with the feeling that they take part into a cause, we have to go back to the nature, the social background of these people who go to Syria. They are not going to Syria as a result of a long thought process saying we are against dictatorship in Syria, we want to take part in this fight against injustice. Most of the time they have a high level of frustration, and we give them an outcome for this frustration. But we should be equally worried about people who go to other causes killing people for different reasons. We have hundreds of people, for example, going to Israel and take part in the Israeli army, killing civilians there, and then coming back and being integrated in the society without even asking questions. So today a poll has been produced in Le Monde asking French people, would you be able to die for an ID? 70% of the respondents answered yes, I would be ready to die for an ID, for a value in my society. It doesn't mean that French society is jihadist at large.
But dying for an idea is one thing. Another is to go and spray bullets at a museum.
Yeah, but that's why I say the level of frustration doesn't go with the level of rational thinking and building of a thought process that will lead to taking part into a cause. That's what I want to convey here. When we have people like these young men who do not belong to a social immediate surrounding, who do not have an outflow of energy into a humanitarian project, political or intellectual project, cultural project, the only outcome they can find as sensible, where they do have role models, is violence, whether it be on the national soil through delinquency or with this sort of opportunity in Syria.
All right, I'm going to get the reaction of the rest of our panel right after we come back, because we have to take a very quick break. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.